there's a lot more people.
Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, that's my big thing.
I got Andy next to him.
You have the Airbnb, so yeah, you pay, so you can almost check out as well.
That's more close up to when I look at people, they're all blurry. Yeah. I don't know what to do if I make my distance file, then I can't see the, so I'm just gonna look at blurry faces.
At 1:30.
All right, I'll give it a little bit longer.
Well, this is what I do when I need to read.
She wants to,
Yeah.
her laptop.
Just saying. I'm a little bit too late.
More complicated than that. Yeah.
Is the live stream going? I'm sorry, yeah. No, open please. It's like super hot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That way, they were blue, another.
Yeah.
Recording.
We are recording. Okay. Well, I guess I'm.
My eyes got like 20 different snap ones.
All right, Fiona, can you hear me okay? This is on, right? This is on.
Yeah.
I know there's not a lot of us, but I also know that it's just best and polite to use the microphone for those with any hearing issues or anything. So hopefully you will not fall asleep since it's right after lunch. Oh, for goodness sake, I should. Oh, wow, nice. Okay, welcome to the dark side. We have turkey and brownies. So yeah, I'll kind of vamp for a little bit to see, wait for anybody else, other stragglers. If you've ever been to one of my talks, oh, sorry, I'm Tracy Maleeff. I'm Tracy Maleeff. I'm also known as InfoSec Sherpa. I love giving talks about research and OSINT aspects and things like that. If you went to my Women's Society of Cyber Jitsu talk last year, it was about gardening and there was giveaways and things like that. So if you look under your seats, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I know. Yeah, there are no gummy giveaways or anything. Sorry to disappoint, but yes, I did for like a second think, well, oh, it'd be fun to give away. I'm like, nope, we're not doing that. So yeah, so hello and welcome to all of our online folks. This is Threats and Research Opportunities of the Cannabis Industry. And what this talk is really going to be about. So, I mean, I assume that if you're here, you're, cool with this topic. If you're not cool with this topic, I hope by the end of my talk, you will understand why I gave this presentation. And what this talk is about really is we're going to do some threat modeling, basically. I want to explain to you the threats that this industry faces and why we should care as information security professionals. That's really all it is. You could insert cannabis for agriculture or knitting or anything. You could substitute any industry for cannabis and this would really still be similarly the same talk. So that's what I want to, assure anyone who has any reservations about this topic here. All right, so again here, why am I qualified to talk about this? I have worked in SOX and at a cybersecurity consultancy. I have a Master of Library and Information Science, and I also have a medical marijuana license from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So that means that please come in, join us. Hello, just kind of getting started here. So that means that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and my medical doctor agree that I am responsible enough to consume this product, and my library science degree means I'm responsible enough to talk about research. And yeah, again, just to reiterate for our new folks who came in here, the purpose of this talk is just to shine a light on a vulnerable industry and why you should care, what we can do about it. And I'll kind of go over some threat modeling steps so that you understand what we need to protect. All right. So what this talk isn't, I am not proselytizing. I am not trying to talk you into taking medical marijuana. This is not what this talk is about. This talk is not going to be flippant. Now, it's not going to be humorless because that's not my style, but I'm not going to have stoner memes. And the only stoner jokes I might make is about John Stoner, who's a volunteer with Women's Society of Cyber Jitsu. And I was hoping he'd be here in the room so I could point to him. But welcome, come on in. So yeah, I have a lot of humor in my talks, but this is not going to be like, memes of stoners and things like that. And it's also not FUD. I'm not trying to fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm not trying to motivate you. Again, this is just all about threat modeling of an industry. The reason why, if you're probably like, okay, lady, we're here, we're interested in your talk. This talk was very controversial to get approved for this conference. So that's why I'm just trying to do my due diligence and lay down, to allay fears of the committee that did eventually approve this. So what my talk is, this is going to be totes profesh, okay? This is going to be all about research, how to find things, what to do with that information. And I am going to be mostly focused on medical usage versus recreational, for obvious reasons, because I want to keep this more on the up and up and not have this delve into some crazy free for all about pot. This is medical marijuana use, why we need to protect it and why it's important. That's billion with a B. That is how much the legal cannabis industry is worth. And this is information from the top cannabis researcher of Brightfield Group, which they go on to predict 50.7 billion sales by 2028. So this is a very valuable industry. So that's the first part of our threat model. This is value. This is a significantly valued industry. Just quick show of hands. Did anybody think it would be this valuable? You did? Okay. Yeah. And I'll get into some of that later, because it's mostly a cash industry for now. Yeah, it could really be. You're right. You're absolutely right. I don't know if anybody on the video heard that the question was, she thought that it would be more valued more. And yeah, it might very well be because it's cash. So this is the first threat that we have to consider is the value of this industry. All right. Again, I just want to give you a quick primer on, what's the product that we're trying to protect. So it starts off as a plant, gets dried and goes to those weird little looking things. But how did we get here? So marijuana is a Schedule I substance under the Controlled Substances Act. And what does that mean? Schedule I means that it has a high potential for abuse, no currently accepted medical use treatment in the United States, asterisk, I'll get back to that, and lack of accepted safety use under medical supervision, asterisk, I'll get back to that. So just, for fun, I'll throw it to the audience. Does anybody know what the other Schedule I, Class I drugs are? What are considered by the US government as dangerous as marijuana? Bingo, heroin, LSD, peyote. One of these things is not like the other. Sorry, that was a little bit of my own commentary there, but yeah, so why we are here, why is this such a weird industry to deal with is because federally it's a Schedule I narcotic, but there really are medical uses. So 38 states, 3 territories, and the District of Columbia agree that there are medical legitimacy to using cannabis. So that's why I said asterisk, is federally they say it's not, but how many millions of people do you think live in those areas and do that? So ultimately, the FDA is the one that has the federal authority to approve drugs for medicinal use. And the FDA has not approved federally for medicinal usage. And therefore the FDA and the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, maintain that it is illegal federally for medicinal use. Now I'll get into some of this later, but this is also why it's a cash industry. Because of banking rules, they cannot use banks. Small business owners cannot get loans to have a cannabis business because it is illegal federally. And I see your look at this. Yeah, I see your look at disbelief in the front there. So this is kind of going to be our asset management portion of this afternoon. I don't like to put slides with a lot of words, but I could not break this paragraph down any better and still make it have a full impact. So if you're going to read, I'll just kind of talk about it. But these are just some of the many ailments that can be helped by medical marijuana. And you know, what comes along with this is PHI, right? Personal health information. So there's a lot of data and digital security concerns with the cannabis industry. You know, what if, for example, somebody has HIV or AIDS and their doctor gives them medical marijuana and then they're caught up in a data breach? Maybe they didn't tell their friends and family that they have HIV or AIDS, or maybe they don't want to get that out, or maybe somebody is a part of a very religious community and privately between them and their doctor, they have decided that medical marijuana is best for them. So they don't want to be caught up in a data breach and feel that. So, you know, this really isn't different than regular medical stuff, right? And I said by regular, you know, I mean, like, you know, your dentist or something. This still has the same privacy considerations than any other health aspect. And I'll just kind of, just share something personal, which I don't mind sharing. Is you see the part down at the bottom of Advil and Maleeff and things like that. I have arthritis, and I was taking so much Advil, Aleve, ibuprofen, things like that, that my doctor's like, your liver is starting to show elevated signs. And I think we need to move you away from those painkillers. So pain management, chronic pain management is a big use for it. So yes, medical marijuana is healthier for me than me killing my liver, which I'm going to do with gin anyway. No, I'm just kidding. That was a joke. I'm just being sorry. Sorry. I said this wasn't gonna be flippant, but anyway, yeah. So I just want I want people to understand is that there are real needs for this, because, you know, so-called Western medicine can be harmful to some folks. And, you know, last night I heard a story of someone allergic to an ingredient in Advil. So what do you do if you're allergic to the Western medicine? And I also want to point out here is, and people might not put this together, patients who use medical marijuana are going to be vulnerable to phishing if there was a data breach. So think about it. Say that maybe you have ALS and you are caught up in a data breach, and somebody tries to trick you with, oh, you know, there's a new cure, or here's a new strain, or even if whether or not they pretend to be of the cannabis industry, they're still going to have your information. They're going to know that you're taking medical marijuana. They're going to know your medical symptom. You're already going to be vulnerable and probably desperate for a cure or relief. Can you imagine phishing that vulnerable group of people because they were lost in a data breach? It's that serious. That's what I want people to understand. Cannabis industry is a serious data breach, you know, digital safety problem that we need to help with, because it got me all emotional thinking about someone, you know, with multiple sclerosis and maybe getting a phishing email promising them some cure. And maybe because they're in so much pain, they're maybe not thinking right and click on a phishing link that would really just be awful and irresponsible of our industry to ignore. And want to just talk briefly about the differences between CBD and THC. CBD is derived from cannabis, but it lacks the psychoactive properties of THC. So meaning CBD can cure pain, but without the quote unquote euphoric high that comes with it. But the problem is there's a lot of, are you familiar with the term snake oil salesman? Or I guess it's 2023, snake oil salespeople. Then, you know, hashtag equality. So there's a lot of fakes of CBD, a lot of people claiming that they have CBD as cures, and it's really, it's not, you know, properly regulated. So that's a problem. And that's just the difference, by the way, to let you know, is because some people might be like, well, why can I go into CVS and get CBD, but I can't get THC? CBD doesn't have the psychoactive, but honestly, anything at Walgreens that says CBD, I'd be willing to bet is probably a placebo, is my guess anyway. But this is for $18 online. You can get this from the Harvard Medical School that gives you all the information that you need. Now, part of me, again, my former librarian self is thinking this really should be free to folks, but I understand that those doctors and researchers do like to have an income. So, but I don't think that $18 is terribly much. But if you are interested in learning more about about the product itself, since this is about the security of it, you can go there. I'll make these slides available and you can click on that. All right. So let's get down to the meat and potatoes here, as we say. So let's talk about their physical security concerns. The cannabis industry has long considered themselves to be physically vulnerable, which is true. And they're just starting to realize that there are digital vulnerabilities. But let's look at an example of their supply chain. So it starts in the fields, greenhouses and grow facilities. You have physical security issues there. You also have digital securities. They'll have security cameras, but security cameras, IoT connected to the internet, can be what? Hacked, right? Did I, somebody's leaving. Sorry, did I? Okay. I lost one already. I'm sorry. Thank you for coming though. And then next you have the processing facilities, which again, physical security, any locked doors or anything connected to the internet is vulnerable. And then you go into storage as well. Again, it's just a giant warehouse that's going to have physical and digital things. Transportation. Now you're starting to get into some other industries. You're starting to get into the trucking industry, the railroad industry, the transportation industry. You're then reliant on third-party providers that they have their security shiz together, right? And then you get to the dispensaries and all the markets. So then that's a whole other area. And then finally, the consumer themselves, they have their own threat model of, keeping their medical marijuana away from anyone who's not authorized to take it, which is anyone other than them, and also because it's a cash industry, you're walking around with a ton of cash to go get your medicine. Like, it's 2023, people, that's an amazing thing to look at that. So look at all the different data points and how it spreads out from there. Those 6 points here have so many different subsets. We'd be here forever mapping this. All right, where are my Wu-Tang fans at? Wu-Tang, all right. Who can tell me what this stands for? Awesome, thank you. Woo-hoo. And for those who didn't hear, it's cash rules everything around me. And the reason why I use this is a cash industry. I'm not joking. You have to roll into your dispensary with a wad of cash. And that is, and not only is that dangerous for the employees and the dispensary itself, hold on one second, dispensary itself, but again, the consumer of it has to walk in there. I'm sorry, you had a question?
Thanks, Tracy. So this cash only nature, is this unique to the United States? Because I know, like, for example, Canada has its dispensaries. I don't know what it's like in Europe and other countries, but just that's my question.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll answer that, but let me first by saying yes. This talk is US based because that's what I know. I can say that I have gone to Canada and used my credit card. So I can't speak about the rest of the world, but I do know that in Canada, I was able to walk in and use my credit card and was able to do that fine. So I can't speak for every country in the world, but this is US based, yes, that it's in the US. So thank you for your question, yes. So according to, let me get my granny glasses on here. According to the Craft Cannabis Coalition, in Washington state alone, within 3 years, armed robberies of cannabis dispensaries went up 124%. Because of current federal laws must be cash only. So this makes dispensaries high targets and their patients high targets. Remember, medical marijuana, they're patients, they're not users. They're not stoners, they're patients. These patients are all vulnerable because of cash only. So in a few slides, I'm going to talk about the Secure and Fair Enforcement Banking Act of 2023, also called the Safe Banking Act, which is legislation proposing to help make this less of a vulnerable industry. So we'll get to that in a couple slides. So that's the big problem. This is cash and can you imagine, with how much prescriptions and doctors cost if you had to walk around? I mean, some people do have to walk around with cash to do this. So it's a very vulnerable and insecure method just to get some medical relief. So right now I'm kind of going to walk you through what it looks like physically so you can understand their physical threat model here. So this is an example of a real store. It's called Liberty Cannabis in Norristown, Pennsylvania. So first, they have locked doors. You have to get buzzed in. Yeah, so you go into a vestibule where they have a guard sitting there and an employee with a computer. You show your medical ID card, and then they have to buzz you in again. So it's basically kind of like a man trap, right? So once you go, and you only get let in one at a time. So one at a time, they look through your stuff, make sure you're legit, and then they buzz you in again. You go in and you sit down, and then you get called by name to go over. So, you know, that's, but there, what does that do? That opens up opportunities for social engineering, or even, heaven forbid, a brute force physical attack. So, but these are the things they have in place, but I'm also, just because it's threat modeling here, I'm pointing out the vulnerabilities. There's frosted glass. You know, you can't just look in and see, because heaven forbid, if, you know, and what about the children? Well, you know, if somebody's concerned about that in their neighborhood, there's frosted glass. You can't see inside of it. Modest signage. It doesn't say, you know, super pot here or anything. Now, this isn't the same all over. This is for Pennsylvania, for example. This is, you know, some of them, when you get into the more recreational stuff, that's a little bit more showy and puns on names and things like that. But again, I'm concentrating on medicinal. So a lot of the medicinal dispensaries will be very modest, you know, well lit, modest signage, frosted glass, locked doors, man traps, etc. And then this is an example. Now, I love my home Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but can we get a more sophisticated looking ID, please? Mine, I'm convinced that I made mine in my basement. I did not, but it's legit, but it looks sketch, right? So, you know, again, you get buzzed into the vestibule and you call, and again, this is just an example of what the card looks like. And they don't want to see anything else. I mistakenly showed them my license, and they were like, no, we need your medical marijuana card. And you also, I forgot to mention this in my notes, but you can't go in you can't be a +1, right? That's another safety feature. So for example, my husband had his card first. I couldn't go in with him. I couldn't be his +1 because everyone has to have their own card. So everyone in there sitting around waiting with you, they all got their cards. And then just to show you, this is an example. I'm going to do something localish for the folks here. This is what the inside looks like. Okay, it's clean. Everything's, you know, behind glass, and there's merch too. You can also get merch if you want. Oh, I made a joke about you earlier. You won't hear. Everybody, John Stoner, everyone. Hello. I said I wasn't going to make any stoner jokes unless it was about John Stoner. So there we go. So this is just for those of you who haven't been inside. This is what the inside looks like. So it's not scary. It's not dirty. I mean, please, how many of us have bought food from places that look sketchier than this, right? So this is what the inside of one looks like. And also at the one that I go to, I'm not sure about this one, but the actual product is all kept behind another windowless, buzzed in area. So you talk to they're called bud tenders. You talk to the bud tender, you tell them your ailments, and then they make recommendations to you. And it's just like, you know, when you go to the pharmacy and there's that special area of that says, come here for discussion. It's just like that. You talk to them, you tell them what your ailments are, and they suggest things, and then they go back into the safe room and bring things back. The thing I was going to mention too is about their physical safety. The bags have to be stapled shut. You cannot open any product in the stores. And everything is like, it's very proper that way, that, you know, there's no accidental ingestion or anything like that. And I'm going overboard talking about the safety of it, because if anybody is still skeptical, I'm just assuring you, they take all kinds of physical security measures. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's go over to digital concerns. So if you think about it, look at all these different entry points. You know, there's apps. There's an app called Leafly. So there's all kinds of app security. You know, the customers themselves, there's security. All the equipment, the financials, there's social media things. What if somebody got a hold of a social media account and started putting out false or incorrect information? There's trademarks, all kinds of intellectual property. Quick funny story about the security there, and also the work that we have to do with awareness and training. I was trying to log into the app for the medical dispensary that I use. long story short, it was user error, as it always is, right? But I was having a problem getting into my app, and the woman, the bud tender, said to me, "Oh, we have really strong security here. I don't think you have to be on our Wi-Fi because I don't think the data can get through our windows." And again, knowing a little bit of it, I know I see all the looks. Yeah, that's why I'm like, inside my head, I'm like, "Oh, honey, like that's not how this works." But I didn't, I'm not about, if you follow me on social media, I'm all about empathy and not shaming. So I'm just like, "Oh, okay." And I'm real, and she's like, "Oh, you have to be on our Wi-Fi." And she said something like, "Sometimes when I'm here, I don't get emails because our windows are so thick and our security is so strong." And I'm like, "Oh." So after I figured out that it was just me using the wrong email address to try and get into the app, because again, the problem was between the phone and the floor was me. Tried to explain to her that that wasn't the issue, but that really was kind of a lost cause. And I'm not sharing this to shame this woman, but just to explain to you that even the bud tenders aren't fully up to speed on cybersecurity best practices and awareness and things like that. So funny story, not trying to make fun of the woman, but yeah, I was like, "Oh, that's not how that works." But yeah, the frosted glass isn't prohibiting me from getting into my app. It's me prohibiting me from getting into my app. This is a resource here. Oh, bummer, it got cut off a little bit. But anyway, it just says where things are legal in the US. The National Conference of State Legislatures is a great resource to go and see what's available in each state. I'm going to try to hurry up here. And I picked Virginia because we're in Virginia, but you can then drill down. I just recommend to people, if you're going on vacation and you want to know what it's like, in another state, I always say know before you go. Don't guess, don't just randomly Google. Go to a reliable resource. A place like Normal, it's up there, normal.org/laws. Normal is the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. They make it their business to be on top of the laws in the US. So again, don't trust some random site on Google, please. Please go to a source like Normal that is going to be on top of it. They've been advocating for marijuana reform since 1970. They know what they're doing. They're going to give you the right information. There's also lawyers.normal.org if you need to find a lawyer to help with the cannabis issue. And that's what I just want to recommend is go to good resources. Don't just trust it to whatever comes up in a Google search, because it might be a paid placement that might not necessarily be on top of the law. And then if you want to travel internationally, a lot of people are like, "I'm going to Jamaica. I'm going to the Netherlands. I'm going to get high." Oh, you really should double check, and you should know before you go, because unless you want to be starring in an episode of Locked Up Abroad, I highly recommend that you go to a site like this, THC Affiliates, where it breaks it down to you in no uncertain terms, what you can and can't do. And that's, again, only I'm touching on recreational a little bit, but again, just don't think you can bring stuff with you. And that includes the US. Have you ever seen the security line at SFO and people like ingesting stuff before they get on the plane? It's because you can't, I'm not joking. I'm just saying, people are like, ingesting stuff. Personally, don't travel with it in the US. It's not worth it. It's just not, it's not worth it. This is why you need to be armed with information and common sense. All right, so let's kind of pivot a little bit more and talk about, this is some more deep OSINT stuff. So what is it that I have to protect? I mentioned intellectual property. So I went to this one company. I wanted to see what sort of patents are out there. So I found this company, Fat Panda, P-H-A-T, Fat Panda, in Spokane, Washington. They have patents for, for plant growing and things like that. So this company is going to have some unique, intellectual property to protect. So this is, and you can read all that. This is from the USPTO, which I know is like right around the corner. The USPTO is a very good site. There is also Google patents and things like that. Honestly, I prefer to go right to the source and go right to the USPTO. But what you can do then is pivot and go to a site like Owler and get more information about this company. So up there, it says they generate 60,000, but then below they have them in another range. So keep in mind, private companies are very difficult to do research about. And there's things like Mergent or PitchBook that help. Now they're paid subscriptions. They help with private companies, but something like Owler can at least give you the CEO and founder, where they're located, what their status is. And these NAICS codes, the NAICS, things like that, that 2100, these categorizations can help you pivot to other companies that of this ilk. So this is also a launching point you can do for research. And again, if you want to know who the players are in the field, maybe you work for a company that wants to branch out and offering cannabis industry consultancy services. This is where you go to do that research, to find out who the players are in the field. All right, now we got our laws here. Oh, let's cut off a little bit. So the first one is the one I mentioned already, the Safe Banking Act. I just checked these last night, and these are the status of where they are. The one that's the closest to getting passed is the SAFE Act that was last active April 26th of this year. There's a couple different bills in Congress that are trying to make it safer for the practitioners and the patients to be safer by trying to get away from the cash only business. And I mentioned before, this also hurts small business owners. If you cannot get a loan from a bank if you want to start a cannabis business in the US, again, I don't know about other countries. So yeah, I mean, if you're a big what are those libertarians, or if you're a big libertarian or a big capitalist, then this should concern you, that this is prohibiting small business owners from having a business because of the cannabis industry laws. And what's another big thing we deal with in our world? MDM, misdis malinformation. These are actual headlines. I have the citations there. No, Chuck Schumer is not seeking to legalize marijuana use and sales on Amtrak. Can you imagine them going to the cafe? The cafe car is now open. The cafe car and dispensary is now open. And I don't need to explain this to you, I don't think. You know what MDM does for us normally in information security. It gives bad information, gives misleading information. It gets people thinking the wrong things. What happened, with all the vaccines and stuff like that. So it's the same thing with the cannabis industry. Misdis malinformation is going to either scare people or confuse people or make people be against medicinal marijuana because somebody has an ulterior motive to have them scared away from it. So this is something else that we need to be aware of in our industry that can also affect them. And like G.I. Joe said, knowing is half the battle. This is just a little sampling of resources that I recommend if you do want to get more information. I will make my slides available, but feel free to do that. There is a cannabis conference. There's, cannabis business. The CDC has a lot of information. Leafly is probably the biggest website and app. It's over 120 million visitors. Not only will it give you a breakdown of all the different types of products, but ailments and where to purchase it and laws and all that stuff. The National Conference of State Legislatures, I showed their map earlier. They stay on top of the legal aspects of it. And of course, normal, I already talked about. And I am working on, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this, but everybody knows what an ISAC is, right? Well, there's also an ISAL. It's the Cannabis ISAL. It's the Information Sharing and Analysis Organization for the cannabis industry. I'm wrapping up. I am working on a research guide that's going to be posted on their website, which is just going to be like a finding aid to be able to do research about this industry. So I'm working on it. I'm getting there. In the meantime, they have a Slack. If you want to join them, just go to their website. If you're interested, you can join the Slack and things like that. And that is wrapping up. So whether or not you agree with medical or recreational cannabis use, there's no denying that it's an industry with several different physical and digital security needs. More importantly, there are vulnerable patients who consume these products medically, and they deserve to be protected. Thank you.